blog article out. Released this blog earlier today, actually really early this morning. I finished it up, got it all tidied up and tied up with all the things I needed to do. And I've been working on it for a little while, and I've kind of talked about it on here during a couple of other sessions, and it just took me a while to get it up and running. And so feel free to chime into the chat if you have read it. Please feel free to go ahead and let me know what you think. Let me know if you have questions on it, if you have reactions to it, and we can kind of go from there. But I wanted to kind of go through and talk about why I felt that I should write this. Because, as all of you know, I'm a big fan of the Supernote platform. I'm also a fan of the Books platform as well. But my daily driver, the thing I use the most, is the Supernote Manta. And even when I'm testing other devices, I find that I'm very ready to get back to the Manta as I go. But there are some things that the Manta or the Supernote as a platform just doesn't really do, and may not do as well as some other competitors. And it's not that it has shortcomings as a device, as I've told all of you many times. It's the best device in the world for me, because it does everything I need it to do. Any other thing that it's going to do or that I need it to do is, or I shouldn't say that I need it to do, any other thing it does is usually extra. But for me, I thought, okay, let me sit down, take a look at it, have a conversation with myself first about what's the landscape of all the different devices out there. And this is not all of the different devices that are available by any means. These, however, are the most visible. And that's how I kind of started writing this article, was to talk about what are the most visible other competing tablets out there, and then just a short snippet about what they are and what they offer. Very quick, but wanting to give that context before I jumped in and started talking about what the Supernote platform does well versus what the Supernote platform still needs to improve on. And I kind of give a wish list. Now, the wish list isn't necessarily my own personal wish list. There are some things on here that you're going to see that are more community driven. One of the things I think is the best about, or best, um, one of the best things I think about Supernote as a company is the fact that they listen to their user base. And in listening to their user base, that allows them to make changes or add new features that me personally as a user, I may not need them, but the community, the people who daily drive this product like me, then can get something that they need. And again, we don't all need the same things. We don't all have the same use cases. But for me, them as a company listening, and Books does this to an extent too. It's just, I don't know that they're as purposeful in the implementation. And I think that's where Supernote kind of shines. So I encourage you to go read the article. You know, I talk about the major players. I talk about Remarkable. I talk about Books, a little bit about WeWoods, although I think that personally that's not the platform for me. And most of these aren't, because I'm not going to jump into those. I talk about Kindle, Kobo entering the market, Pinstar, and I do mention iFlyTech, Pocketbook, and BigMe, only because you see a lot of content out there about these providers. iFlyTech, not as much because it's so far mostly sponsored, but you are starting to see people, Jeff Moss, David over at Tablet Tech, and they are getting these devices, and we're starting to see some reviews. And again, I'm never the person who throws shade on sponsored content. I think that it's perfectly valuable as long as you're disclosing, and as long as you're being very upfront and honest with your audience about what you are being sponsored to say and what you're being sponsored not to say, and whether or not that was pre-screened. One reason I haven't worked with iFlyTech is because they want to pre-screen the content, and I just don't do that. But yeah, Big Me, again, very booksish, but definitely not to the polish level that a book software is. So again, I talk about that. I talk about what Supernote does well. And I also link out to a bunch of different articles here that I've written on the Supernote. And I'm probably going to have a 4-year series at some point, or 4.5 now, on Supernote and what that means. But you can link out. And if you notice too, since I use Obsidian for my blog and for my whole website, if I hit expand here, you can actually navigate to any of these right from here. You can go back to the blog, you can go to any of these articles, and then you can also do it from the table here. And again, so I give those as an option. I talk about what Supernote has done well, as far as reimagining their digest, some of the things they're doing with text notes, all these things that they've done in a relatively short time span here recently over the last few months to really enhance the platform. And usually this is built, or almost exclusively, with the exception of the new private server, which I don't mention here, but this idea to be able to host your own private server or your own private cloud and connect Supernote that way, bypassing their cloud or any third-party services, is pretty cool. But that and the digest are the two newest features, and the inclusion of text notes in the notes. But again, a lot of it's building on things that already exist. Supernote already had a digest. I never found it ultimately useful in its previous iteration. This new configuration is phenomenal. So I think that is a big deal. But feel free, drop in the chat, say hello, let me know what your thoughts are. Is there anything that you have uh, going on that uh, you're interested in? Anything from this content that has you, kind of just what are your thoughts? So let's go ahead and jump into the wish list part. So to me, here's the what could be, and the things that I found that really could be improved. Some of them small, some of them large. With the calendar, I think the Supernote calendar is one of the best in the business. It's missing a few things though. It syncs with Google Calendar or with Outlook, so that's awesome. That's a huge win in its column. But it doesn't allow you to view multiple calendars. So for me, I do a lot of merged calendars, and I have a work calendar and a private calendar, and I can only choose one of those. So it doesn't give me my whole day. It doesn't let me see everything. And for me, that's a big deal, where I would want to be able to see that in order to make it work. Um, Also, another thing is the way they've implemented it, I can deal with, but I would like it to be better, is last access and created date for notes to be viewable in the calendar. Right now, you can only see them by creation date, which, if you've got to pick one, I think is the best way to go. But it would be really nice if you could see both accessed and or last accessed and creation date. There's also the to-dos. It would be great if they integrated that to where in that bottom section on the calendar, you could see your to-dos just by pressing a button and have those pop up, so that you don't have to navigate out to find that. Another big thing would be recent documents, being able to see your recent documents. Now, on the Supernote, again, you can swipe up and down on that on your quick access, and you can see all of those recently accessed files. And that's probably why they don't do this. But it would be really cool if I didn't have to swipe down and I could just press a button on the page and have that pop up like I can with my notes. And then the last big one, I think, for a lot of people is writing on the daily view. Supernote allows you the most flexibility in being able to write on the daily, or I mean, on the monthly and weekly view. But what it doesn't do is allow you to write on that daily view. And If you're using this as a paper calendar replacement, to me, that's what they're missing the most. Yes, it can be digital. Yes, you can use more things. Yes, you can combine a Google Calendar. But if you don't want to, you shouldn't have to. And they've done a really good job of that with to-dos by making it so that you can either use the app on device or access it off of the device through the partner apps. But fire in with any questions. Are there things missing here? We've had a really good conversation on Reddit today about where people see that, I'm missing something or some different things that they would add that I wouldn't. I'd be curious to hear anyone's thought in the chat. So feel free to jump in and throw that into the chat and let me know. As far as notes, few things that they could fix here. I love the keyword feature. It works fine for me right now, but it's only at the page level. I do like that if I move those pages to any other notebook or anywhere else in the system, the keywords travel. Uh, but to actually make a word, it automatically recognizes the word. And for a long time, I thought that it made that word the keyword. It doesn't. It adds it to the page. So you can then add as many keywords as you need. And if I'm using that as a way to track notes, it works exceptionally well. If I want to know a specific note is about the learning management system, uh, adult education, teaching and learning, and take all these different keywords, I can just add them right to the title. And when I go to search by keyword, it's going to pull all the notes that I've tagged with those different keywords. So it works really well for me, and it's something that I enjoy. Um, but if they could make it to where you also could have it at the word level, that would be awesome. Subheadings. This is something that's not a huge thing for me, but I can see it being very useful, and especially now that they have the text to where you could really structure that outline to have both top level and sub level headings. And I think that that's one of those things where they could make a real improvement, and then allowing that to export to a PDF, kind of like Books does with their outline feature, that would be really impressive. The biggest issue there is that for books, the headings don't really travel. You have to kind of move those around. If you change the order um, of the text of wherever the text is, now, if you change just the page order, it works fine and it auto updates. But with the headings in Supernote, they are at the text level. So once you make something a heading, if you move just that piece 5 pages away, it's going to maintain. So you can actually select that text and move it somewhere else. Or if you combine it with a new notebook, just that text and not the actual page, it will automatically transfer over. So it's just a little bit different in the way they do it. To-dos, this would be really beneficial for me. I'd really like to see them have it be marked in the notes in some way. Right now, it does create that link back to the notes, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't allow you to see that. When you go into the note, you don't get any kind of highlight representation saying that here is that task. You just end up on the page and you can't check it off from there. So you can't say, I've completed this. Some of their competitors allow you to do that. So that would be really useful for me. Um, and then the SD card linking, I think they're really close on. Right now, if you create anything on the Supernote and add links to other documents, everything else, if you move that off either through OTG or to the SD card, those links are maintained and they point back to that source file, whether that source file is moved to the SD card or whether it remains on device. It will update and find that. And then from within your SD card, you can actually uh, create a link back to the main device storage. What you can't do yet is go from a note that's on the main device storage and create a link to something on the SD card. And so I think that's something that's probably coming. Not a big deal for me right now, but for a lot of people who are dealing with storage, and especially since the Supernote is expandable up to, I believe, 2 terabytes with the SD card, you could really build out a second brain. Of course, for me to do that, I would want the SD card to then back up to the Supernote cloud. And right now, it doesn't do that. It only backs up your main device. So for me, this could be a game-changing way to handle all of this information, but they'd really have to jump in there and kind of make it a little bit better. Again, folks, jump into the chat. I'm seeing people watching, but I'm not getting any chat. Let me know what your thoughts on this are. It took me a while to write this article, primarily because, again, I was trying to think about it not just through my own lens, but also based on things I've read, things that I could imagine in the future wanting to do with the device. And then here's where I may differ from a lot of you on the Reader app. A lot of people see it as way too limiting. Personally, I think it's fabulous. Do you have more features? My friend Jeff Moss always says features per square inch when he talks about books. And he's right. You can do so much more in the Neo Reader than you can do in the Supernote Reader app. But the truth is, I don't need all of that. So for me, I had to really push myself here and on the accessories block when we get there to think through what are the best ways that it could be improved, not necessarily from my standpoint, although the second note here I think is something everybody would like to see. But one is color highlighting, and Supernote did this for like half a second. So they popped out and they said, okay, we're going to offer, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 colors, but I know that blue was one of them, yellow was another, and I don't know if it was, well, I know pink and yellow. I'm not sure if it was blue or green on the last color. And then they immediately pulled that back and said, no, we're sticking with yellow. Uh, and a lot of people got upset about that. Now, I don't highlight with different colors, but I understand the people who do. And I think it's really important to think through why it's important for those people to be able to do that. Because again, this is about building an ecosystem that works for a lot of different people, not just for specifics, but being able to kind of fit itself into different places. The second one, though, to me is a no-brainer, which is the dictionary support. That's something that pretty much any good e-reader has, and I don't mean good e-reader as in good e-reader, the channel, but I think it would be really nice if they had dictionary support. And a lot of manufacturers offer even more than that, which include Wikipedia web searches. And although I don't want AI, but some of them even allow you to open up part of that text in an AI model. Now, for me, I don't want that. I don't want Supernote to go down that road. Hopefully they don't. But a good dictionary, I think, would be really important. And then they could add in some customization tools. But right now, I think with the fact the way their digest works, the way you can embed comments in PDFs directly, and the way you can annotate on the device and export in different colors for your markups, I like it. It works. It works well for me. But I wanted to put something there for the people who I think are asking for these other specific things. So, and then I move on to accessories. And again, this is something that for me isn't a make or break, but I do think that there are uh, things they could do that would just enhance the attractiveness of the product even more. So I'm not a big fan of the booklight, but a lot of people, the minute the Nomad was released with those pogo pens, said, why don't we have a booklight as an attachment? It's perfectly placed. The pogo pens are on the top of the device. Why not just put up there a booklight or make an accessory that hooks onto those pens, draws a minimal amount of power from the device, and allows you to read in bed at night? And I think they could do that. Or maybe even just get the community involved and give out the specs for the DIY zone so that someone else could make this. The second one is a full folio for the Manta. I'm not on this train, but a lot of people really feel it was a miss that they didn't put a full folio option there for you to be able to have. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I love the half folio. I think it works exceedingly well. It's designed well, and it just works with the device. And for me, that's been a great thing to have. The other thing, and these last two are things that I think would be really good. One is the Manta, what I call the side dust cover. And this is something I mentioned, and I believe I wasn't the first person to have this device, but I would believe I was the first person to review this device. And when it came out, I want to take that back. Sheila Mack was the first person to review it. Uh, I believe her video came out before mine, and so I want to be real clear about that. But I was the first one, uh, or the second person to actually review it. The first one to get a full production off of the finalized product, and so one thing is when you take that dust cover off, and let me see, let me pull this out here. Let me go ahead and pull this out and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And I'll also, let me switch views here again real quick. So let's go to layout. Oh, wrong one. Okay. Well, let me stop sharing here for just a second and I will go to full screen. So on the Manta, and this is one thing that, like I said, with this case, it's kind of one of those things you either love it or you hate it. And a lot of people love it or hate it. So there's not a lot of in between. But one thing, and when I first reviewed the device, this was what I said. I love the cover, but when you take it off, you have this problem. You have the slots for for the cover, and you have your pogo pins. So for me, that's a dust issue. Now, mine's never out of the cover, so I don't really have that as a problem. But I told them on day one when I got this device that they needed to have something, a piece of silicone or whatever it would be, with basically extensions, basically this part of the cover without the rest of the cover. And they could have taken that, and then all of a sudden your device can go without its cover. You don't have to worry about it. You can take it wherever you want to go, and it's just going to work. And it makes it even lighter with that. So I don't know why they didn't do that. So I think that would be nice for them to either, again, specs with the DIY zone, and that lets you do it, or do they come out with their own accessory? Again, another revenue stream for them, something they can really do a lot of good with. Let's go back to sharing real quick and I'll finish this out and then I'll hop off here in just a few minutes. Again, if you have questions, if you agree, disagree, let me know and we can have that conversation. I would love to, uh, at least for the next few minutes that I'm here. So, and then the last part under accessories is the Manta, what I call the keyboard case. I think you could do it on the Nomad, but the Nomad would automatically be in portrait orientation if you did it because of the placement of the pogo pins. But with the Manta and having those pogo pins on the bottom, it makes this a perfect device to have a keyboard cover that would really work well with this. And since they've added text notes, since they've fixed the issue of latency with the typing experience, to me, it's a no-brainer that they would also be able to make this work with the Manta and with the keyboard. And the experience has gotten so much better. I think that they could really do a good job with that, especially since it's light and that pogo pin connection would just be that much better. That's my take on it anyway. So, and then of course, the last thing, which is the elephant in the room, is an A4 size Supernote. So if I had a wish list, if Supernote's listing right now, I know it's not going to happen by the end of this year, but I would absolutely love an A4 size device. I'm enjoying using the Note Max, but it isn't my ecosystem. It's not something that I use all of the time. I use it to grade papers with and to do and mark up large PDFs, and it's phenomenal for that. And their split screen is great, but I can do a lot of that with the Supernote Digest. I would like to see a split screen come to Supernote if they're going to do a large device, but overall, just getting that large format device with the tool set that you have would be phenomenal to me for the Supernote ecosystem. So that's it. And then final thoughts were just, check out any other blog site or any other blog articles. What are your thoughts? I invited everybody to give me their feedback. Like I said, I posted this on uh, all of my social media. I went and posted it over on Reddit, and we've had some really good discussions. But I'm curious, anybody out there, what questions do you have? What are some different things you may be thinking about? Am I off base here? Are there things that I didn't mention that I didn't cover in this article if you've had time to read it? If you haven't had time to read it, please do so. It is at ofc1820.com. That's where my website resides. And you can find all of my things over there. You can find links to the things I use. You can find some of my YouTube videos. But let me know, drop something in the chat. Let me know what you think about this wish list. Is it your wish list? Are there things on here you're like, Ed, man, that's just crazy. Why would you want that? Are there things that are like, how could you possibly miss this? Because this is so much more important than the things you list. Those are the kinds of things I'd like to hear. And if you're watching this on the replay, drop it down in the comments. I would really appreciate your feedback and letting me know what your use cases are on how this device works for you. And, if you're not a Supernote user, why not? What makes the other platform you use that much better than this particular platform? And there's a lot of choices, especially now. When I started this, when I bought my tablet 4.5, almost 5 years, well, almost 4.5 years ago now, uh, I had Remarkable, some options on books, and Supernote. Those were my options. And now when you go back up to the top of this list, there's and I think some of these other options were already out there, but they weren't as visible, so I didn't know about them. But you've got Big Me, you've got Kindle in the mix, you've got Kobo in the mix, you've got Pocketbook, you've got, all of these different brands trying to sell you what the experience they believe you want. And to me, that's where this gets really interesting. And I think it's one of those times when you just have to be really careful. You have to think through what is the best thing for me. And for me personally, right now, it's the Supernote, but that doesn't mean you say, okay, does the device just stay as it is? Or can it be improved? To me, there's always place and always room for continual improvement, whether that's us as individuals, whether that's companies, whether that's workflows, it doesn't matter. There's always room for education and growth. And so that's why I put together this blog post. That's why I thought it was important enough to do a quick live stream about it, because to me, this is a big component of making things productive and organized. Well, anyway, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in or watching this on the replay. Again, please like, subscribe to the channel, use my links down below if you get a chance. I will be doing some content on the platform I'm using to deliver this, which is Riverside. They have a Black Friday sale going on right now. I'll try and link those or drop that description and code, or I'll try to drop that information and some different stuff down in the description below. But until next time, thank you all so much for being here or watching, all of your support, and keep on moving forward. We will talk to you soon. Bye now.